former journalist convicted of phone hacking who has turned into campaigning for Prince Harry and Hugh Grant and helped them bring those cases against The Sun and the News of the World. The family of an Ayrshire teenager who was murdered in 2008 say they're disappointed a killer was granted parole. John Wilson, who's now 36, was given a life sentence after he killed 17-year-old Michelle Stewart in Drongan in 2008. Our correspondent Katrina Renton has been speaking to her dad, Kenny Stewart, who told her what happened to Michelle.
Well, it was a big shock, obviously. 17-year-old Michelle was ready to leave the school and go on the rest of her life. And as I say, we all came up in a little mining village in Drongan. And she went with this guy. She dumped him to go on the rest of her life. She was young at the time. She was going to move on. And of course, you'd never expect a thing in a mining village to happen like that. Somebody comes in a bus, premeditated with a knife, jumped out from behind the shops and stabbed her 10 times. I think the full country got hot by it. You wouldn't think that would happen in Scotland in a wee mining village.
And that's it as well, isn't it? There is no such thing as space really in a place like that. That you're not, everybody knows everybody knows everybody's business. And I guess that's part of your concern. John Wilson was released last week?
He was released last week. He was up for parole. In the afternoon, we got word via the phone that he was getting released to be taking the decision. So he'll be out within 72 hours. So he's back out in the streets, in the public. And that's when it sort of hits you, realising now he's going on with his life and Michelle's dead in a grave. And it's reality that hits you then.
As her dad, I'm imagining this doesn't feel fair. You've lost Michelle, but John Wilson can now get on with his life.
Well, it's also not fair. I mean, as most people say, a life should be for a life. And especially when he's never shown any remorse, that chap. And so he's out there getting on with what he's doing. His full life's ahead of him. I mean, he only done 16 years. It's only a section of life. So he's got other chapters in his life. Michelle's ended at a great age to be 17, 18. The full life in front of you. And a lot of our school friends have now got families and got jobs and kids. We get the life sentence of family.
You've been campaigning for Michelle's law. Tell me about that. Do you feel that you've had better communication because of what you've done with the parole board?
Well, it all started off, we took up to the Scottish Parliament because the parole board was sort of like a closed shop. So we wanted to know more, and we wanted to know about exclusion zones and try to prevent more knife crime, what the sentences were going to be for this, because there wasn't much deterrent. And there's a couple of things changed. I mean, it's more transparent now. They've got to tell you decisions and whether decisions and speak to you more, whereas they wouldn't tell you before. And one of the biggest things we were fighting for exclusion zones. We don't want to be seeing him in the supermarket in Ayr or wherever we are on our daily jobs. So that was one of the main things we wanted, was to him make sure he can't come back into Ayrshire.
So you've achieved that for Michelle?
That is achieved, yeah. He has got licence conditions that he can't come back into Ayrshire. We don't know how it's going to be supervised or what. It's not tagged or anything like that. But with Lisa, my oldest daughter, is not here today. She's wrote to the parole board to get some information how they're going to monitor it and supervise it and how they can make sure it's going to happen.
That was my colleague Katrina Renton speaking to Michelle's dad, Kenny, there. We're listening to that is Defence KC Thomas Ross. Thank you for being with us tonight. Tommy, what's your reaction to what you heard there?
It's an absolutely horrific situation, and I've got every sympathy for the family, because I can guarantee you if it was my daughter who was a victim, I would never want this individual to be released either.
Explain parole, if you would, to our listeners, Tommy. How do prisoners get it, and when, and how far into a sentence?
Well, this was a murder conviction, so he is liable for the rest of his life, either to be in prison or to be in parole. At the time when the sentence is passed, the court must impose what we call a punishment part, and the prisoner cannot apply for parole until the punishment part has been served in full. In this case, the punishment part was 12 years, but Mr. Wilson served 16 years, and the papers I've been able to access suggest that he was previously refused parole on 3 occasions, so this was his 4th parole hearing. So after 12 years, he was entitled to apply, and then every 2 years thereafter, as I understand it, it can be done earlier than that with the permission of the board.
And as you were saying, Mr. Ross, Michelle's parents' reaction is absolutely understandable, what they've been through. But we don't generally have full life terms, do we? So it's almost inevitable, perhaps, that murderers will get out of prison.
Yeah, we don't have them. In England have them. I'm not certain that this individual would have qualified for one, even if it had been England. And at various times it has been suggested in Scotland that we should have them. But that's not the policy of the current government. I should say that this individual was sentenced in 2008 and he received a punishment of 12 years. He would get less than that now because we now have what's called the Young Persons Guide, Sentencing Young People Guideline. And as I understand it, Mr. Wilson was 20, so sentences for individuals like Mr. Wilson are on a downward trend, whereas undoubtedly some of the public think they should be heading in the opposite direction.
Thomas, thanks for coming on with us tonight. That's Defence Casey Thomas Ross there. It's 23 minutes.